I was 3 hours into profit margins when my phone buzzed. Madison, I think maybe we need to break up. I'd been waiting for it. Uber receipts to Derek's at 2 a.m., a quickly deleted IG story with 2 wine glasses, and a sudden surge of working late on projects that never existed. I stared for 3 seconds at the cursor blinking in cell D47, then typed, I agree. Your stuff will be on the porch in an hour. She wanted a game. I turned off the console. I saved, drove home, and packed like evidence collection, photo, timestamp, document. Bathroom, 17 shampoos, masks, straightener, curling wand, diffuser, brushes. My lone Head and Shoulders looked lost. Bedroom, 7 decorative pillows, oversized sweaters colonizing my closet, a dusty fake succulent, a jewelry dish of tangled metal. Living room, Pinterest decor, throw blankets you couldn't throw, unlit 2 pretty candles, unread coffee table books. Kitchen, slogan wine glasses, but first, wine. A juicer used twice, an unopened air fryer, organic staples expiring while she lived on DoorDash, a parade of solution water bottles. By the coffee maker, the anniversary earrings she forgot on work dinners. On the counter, her work badge, explaining those fuzzy overtime stories. 6 boxes and 3 garbage bags labeled bathroom, bedroom, kitchen, living room, clothes, random, soft junk, pillows, blankets, the fake plant, went to bags. I shot wide and detail angles, then texted, please collect within 2 hours or it goes to Goodwill. I reopened Excel and finished my analysis. 37 minutes later, my Ring camera pinged. Madison approached, realized this wasn't theater, it was Tuesday logistics. She lifted the bedroom box, dropped it. The jewelry dish shattered on mic. Kieran, we need to talk, open the door! Through the ring. Leave now or I'm calling the police. It was just a test to see if you cared. Madison, leave. Her phone rang. Even compressed, her mother cut through. Madison Rose Holt, you told that boy you wanted to break up and he agreed. What did you expect? Begging, come home, now. Madison stared into the camera. Disbelief, anger, the first flicker of consequence, then left. Not the end, just the engine warming for real performance. The extinction burst began 43 hours later with the precision of a psychological textbook case study. Day 1 was denial, delivered via text message at 11:47 p.m. That wasn't what I meant, and you know it. I was trying to have a conversation about where we're going as a couple. You completely overreacted, and now you're being cruel just to prove a point. This isn't like you. I screenshotted the message, added it to a folder labeled documentation, and went to sleep. Day 2 was anger, arriving in 3 separate waves. Morning text. You're a coward who can't handle real conversations about relationships. Afternoon email to my work address. Congratulations on winning the award for most emotionally unavailable man in Portland. Evening voicemail. I can't believe I wasted 2 years of my life on someone so fundamentally broken that he can't recognize love when it's right in front of him. I forwarded the work email to HR as a precaution, saved the voicemail, and updated my documentation folder. Day 3 was bargaining, delivered with the nuclear option, I'm pregnant. The text arrived during my morning coffee, accompanied by a photo of a pregnancy test that could have been purchased from Amazon, staged in anyone's bathroom, or found through Google Images. Given that she'd been spending her fertile window at Derek's place rather than mine, the timeline seemed creatively optimistic. I stared at it for exactly 15 seconds, then replied, take a test at a doctor's office, then we'll communicate through lawyers. Radio silence for 6 hours and 23 minutes. Then Madison pivoted to her preferred battlefield, social media. The crying selfie appeared on her Instagram at 2:34 p.m., professionally lit despite the fake tears. Ring light positioned just right to make her eyes sparkle with moisture while maintaining that wounded but beautiful aesthetic that drives engagement. The caption was a masterpiece of manipulative storytelling. When 2 years gets thrown away over one misunderstood text, sometimes you think you know someone, but they show their true colors when things get real. Heartbroken. Betrayed. Men ain't shit. Trust issues. Moving on. Strong women. The performance was flawless in its omission of relevant details. No mention of Derek, of course. No acknowledgement of the late-night Ubers, the mysterious work dinners, the phone calls she'd take in another room. Just pure victim narrative, crafted for maximum sympathy and engagement. Comments poured in within minutes. Her sorority sisters rallying with heart emojis and crown emojis and prayer hands emojis. Random acquaintances who barely knew us offering support and validation. Co-workers she'd complained about for months suddenly becoming her closest allies in the comments section. OMG, babe, what happened? His lost queen, you're better off. Men are literally trash, I'm so sorry. You deserve so much better, hun. King behavior is treating you right. Peasant behavior is whatever he did. The performance was flawless until Carlos, my college roommate and current weekend BBQ partner, scrolled past and decided to introduce facts into the emotional narrative. His comment appeared 47 minutes after the post went live. Wait, didn't you text him that you wanted to break up, though? Kieran showed me the screenshot. Sounds like he just agreed with what you said you wanted. The post disappeared within 3 minutes. Madison shifted gears with the frantic energy of someone whose first strategy had been exposed. Now it was time for direct attacks, personal and dirty. The Forgotten Items campaign launched the next morning. Text messages about her grandmother's engagement ring that needed immediate retrieval, despite the fact that her grandmother had died when Madison was 12 and left no jewelry to anyone. Her phone charger that was the only one that worked with her phone, a standard iPhone charging cable available at any gas station for $12. Sentimental items that couldn't possibly wait for a normal breakup timeline, a book I'd given her that she'd never read, a sweatshirt that smelled like our relationship, photos that existed in digital form on her phone but apparently required the physical prints she'd never looked at. I'd documented everything I packed with the thoroughness of a forensic accountant. Timestamps on photos, itemized lists in spreadsheet format, video footage of each box being filled and sealed. The Ring doorbell camera had recorded her collecting every single container, struggling with the weight, making multiple trips, even taking the garbage bags despite complaining about their unwieldiness. When she claimed I was holding her belongings hostage and threatened to call the police for theft, I sent her screenshots proving she'd collected everything 3 days prior, along with timestamps and video evidence. Then came the fake doctor call. My phone rang at 9:23 a.m. from a number listed as St. Mary's Women's Clinic. The voice attempted medical professionalism, but couldn't quite mask the familiar vocal fry. Hello, this is Dr. Martinez calling about Madison Holt's pregnancy test results. We need to speak with the father about next steps and financial responsibility. This is Madison pretending to be a doctor, I interrupted. Impersonating medical personnel is a federal crime punishable by fines up to $10,000 and potential jail time. Click. Madison tried the gym next because she'd apparently decided that if she couldn't manipulate me emotionally, she'd disrupt my routine physically. I maintained my 6 a.m. workout schedule with religious dedication, partly for fitness, mostly for the meditative quality of lifting heavy objects in silence while other people's lives fell apart around them. She appeared at the front desk on Thursday morning, wearing workout clothes she'd purchased specifically for this ambush, demanding they let her in to talk to my boyfriend about our relationship problems. Ex-girlfriend, I corrected the staff member, a college-aged kid who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else on Earth. She's not authorized on my membership, she doesn't have a membership of her own, and she's not welcome here. Building security. 2 retired cops who took their jobs seriously despite the minimum wage pay escorted Madison out while she shouted about her fitness journey being ruined by my emotional immaturity. She hadn't set foot in a gym in 2 years. Her idea of exercise was walking to Starbucks instead of using the drive-thru. If she couldn't get through to me herself, she'd send proxy warriors. Brittany called that evening during my meal prep session, using the concerned friend voice that women deploy when they're about to manipulate you on behalf of another woman. Kieran, Madison's really struggling right now. She's talking about doing something dramatic. Like she mentioned flying to Portland to see her ex-boyfriend Tyler. You know, the one from college? She's not thinking clearly, and I'm worried she's going to do something she'll regret just to make you jealous. The threat was supposed to trigger my possessive instincts, make me panic about Madison reconnecting with old flames, prompt me to call her immediately and beg her not to go. What Brittany didn't know was that Madison had already been reconnecting with someone much closer to home. The Portland threat felt almost quaint compared to the Derek situation. Instead, I blocked Brittany's number and focused on my actual life, specifically perfecting my chicken marinade recipe and finishing a book about behavioral psychology. Turned out the Portland trip was entirely fictional, a performance piece staged for social media and designed to reach me through mutual friends. Madison had spent the weekend binge-watching Netflix on her couch while posting photos at PDX Airport, tagging herself at Portland restaurants she'd found on Google, sharing a selfie with the caption, "Reconnecting with someone who actually appreciates me and doesn't play childish games." Her cousin Emma mentioned at a coffee shop 2 weeks later that Madison had ordered DoorDash 3 times that weekend and hadn't left her apartment. The Portland performance required more effort than actually visiting Portland would have taken. But Madison wasn't done with the professionals as weapons strategy. The LinkedIn message arrived on a Tuesday morning from someone named Serena Blackwood, whose profile listed her occupation as spiritual life coach and relationship healer. Her headshot featured the kind of soft focus photography and ethereal smile that suggested she believed crystals could cure depression. "Hi, Kieran. I'm currently working with someone very close to you on clearing energy blocks and healing patterns in past relationships. The universe has a beautiful way of bringing people back together when they're meant to heal and grow together. Would you be open to a brief conversation about releasing the hurt and finding your way back to love?" I replied within minutes, "I'm spiritually and technically unavailable. Please remove my contact information from your client files and discontinue all communication." Serena persisted with the determination of someone whose business model depended on manufacturing relationship drama. "I completely understand your resistance. It's actually a sign that the universe is asking you to lean into the discomfort and trust the process. Sometimes our greatest growth comes from the relationships that challenge us most. Madison has shared some beautiful insights about your connection, and I truly believe, block." But the universe, apparently, kept manufacturing convenient coincidences. Game night at Trevor's house turned into an accidental ambush when Madison appeared 45 minutes after I'd arrived, carrying wine and wearing an expression of innocent surprise. "Oh wow, I had no idea you'd be here." Trevor didn't mention, "Well, this is awkward, but we're both adults, right?" Tuesday trivia at Murphy's Pub became another cosmic coincidence when Madison's team claimed the table directly adjacent to mine, close enough for me to hear her stage-whispered comments about some people who can't handle emotional honesty and men who run away the moment things get real. The beach volleyball tournament was Madison's most ambitious production yet. She'd never played volleyball in the 2 years I'd known her, but suddenly became passionate about supporting the team and staying active in the community. She arrived in a bikini that suggested she'd spent considerable time shopping for this specific event, positioned herself in the direct sightline of anyone who might look in my direction. Each ambush featured a slightly different version of our story. First it was, "I was just joking about breaking up, obviously, and he totally overreacted." Then it became, "I was testing whether he really cared about our relationship or if he was just going through the motions." Eventually the narrative morphed into, "He'd been planning this whole thing for weeks, just waiting for an excuse to humiliate me publicly." People started avoiding Madison with the instinctive social sense that detects drama and crosses the street to avoid it. I started leaving events early rather than engaging with her performances, which seemed to frustrate her more than direct confrontation would have. When she couldn't manufacture organic coincidences, Madison decided to make her presence impossible to ignore. I discovered the first note tucked under my windshield wiper after a particularly long day at work. Folded notebook paper with handwriting that looked like it belonged in a teenage diary. "Kieran, Let's talk like adults. This silent treatment is childish and beneath both of us, minus M. The next day brought another note, this one typed and printed, "You can't ignore real love forever. What we had was special and you're throwing it away because your ego is bruised. Call me." By Thursday, the notes had escalated to poster board. I arrived at work to find my designated parking spot surrounded by signs that looked like a promposal gone wrong. Kieran spelled out in red poster board letters, followed by "I'm sorry" in blue and "Please forgive me" in yellow. Each sign was professionally laminated and staked into the landscaping with metal garden stakes. Building security called me before I made it to the elevator. "Mr. Chen, we have a situation in the parking lot. A young woman was here at 6 a.m. setting up some kind of display. We have her on camera. Do you want us to call the police?" I took photos of everything, collected the signs as evidence, and filed for a restraining order that afternoon. If Madison wouldn't come herself, she'd send someone bigger. Derek Morrison showed up at my apartment on Thursday evening at 7:43 p.m. 6'2", CrossFit build, wearing a tight t-shirt that announced his gym membership and a facial expression that suggested he'd been convinced he was riding to rescue a damsel in distress. The irony that Madison's affair partner was now her knight in shining armor wasn't lost on me. "You need to stop playing games with Madison's head, man," he announced through my door after a knock that was technically polite but felt like a threat. "She's a good person, and you're messing with her mental health." I opened the door and handed him a manila folder containing printed screenshots of every text message exchange Madison and I had shared in the past month, starting with her initial "maybe we need to break up" message. Police report numbers from her parking lot vigils, copies of the restraining order application, security camera footage burned to DVD of Madison throwing boxes on my porch while screaming about tests and games and emotional unavailability. "She told me it started with a misunderstanding," Derek said, flipping through pages with decreasing confidence in his mission. "Keep reading. Pay special attention to the Uber receipts to your address." "Keep reading." Page 3 contained Madison's admission texts. Obviously it was a test, and "I needed to know if you'd fight for us, and real boyfriends don't just give up when things get hard." Page 7 featured her fake pregnancy announcement and subsequent angry messages when I didn't panic appropriately. Page 12 documented her fake doctor call, complete with timestamps and my phone records showing the incoming call from her actual number. The final section contained the Uber receipts, credit card statements showing dinners for two at restaurants I'd never been to, and screenshots of her location data showing regular visits to Derek's apartment building. Data she'd forgotten was automatically shared through our coupled phone plan. Derek's expression shifted from protective knight to confused bystander to something approaching horror as he processed not just the scope of Madison's manipulation campaign, but his own role as the other man in a relationship he'd apparently thought was already over. "Jesus Christ," he muttered, reaching the section about her workplace parking lot display. "She told me you two had broken up months ago. She said you were just her crazy ex who couldn't accept it was over." "You're sleeping with someone who was in a relationship," I said. "And now you're threatening the boyfriend she was cheating on. Does that feel like knight in shining armor behavior to you?" He handed back the folder and walked away without another word, pulling out his phone as he reached the sidewalk, probably to call Madison and ask some very different questions than the ones he'd arrived planning to ask. 10 minutes later, Madison appeared outside my apartment building, screaming with the kind of unhinged fury that makes neighbors peek through curtains and consider calling authorities. "You ruined everything! Derek was perfect and you destroyed it with your lies. You can't let me be happy because you're miserable and pathetic and you want everyone else to be miserable too." I closed the blinds and ordered pizza. From Domino's, because their online ordering system didn't require phone conversation with humans who might overhear the soundtrack of someone's psychological breakdown happening outside. Madison's voice carried through the windows for another 20 minutes, cycling through accusations, threats, bargaining, and eventually what sounded like genuine grief. Not for our relationship, but for the Derek situation that had imploded when facts met fairy tale. She'd lost both her safety net and her exciting affair in the same evening, leaving her with nothing but the consequences of her own choices. Next stop, court and official paper. Paper cuts deeper than words and lasts longer than bruises. Judge Patricia Hendricks looked like she'd been handling restraining order hearings since the Clinton administration and had developed the weary patience of someone who'd seen every variation of human relationship drama multiple times. Her gray hair was pulled back in a bun that suggested efficiency over aesthetics, and her expression conveyed the professional neutrality of someone who'd learned not to be surprised by anything people did to each other in the name of love. "Ms. Holt," she began, consulting the paperwork through reading glasses that had seen better decades, "you initiated contact with Mr. Chen via text message stating, and I quote, 'I think maybe we need to break up.'" Madison shifted in her chair like a student called on when she hadn't done the homework. "Yes, Your Honor, but that's not the whole—" He responded by agreeing to the breakup and requesting that you collect your belongings. "That's not how relationships work. He was supposed to—" "You collected your belongings from his property. He didn't fight for me. It was supposed to start a conversation about our future, not end everything." Judge Hendricks removed her glasses and looked at Madison with the expression of someone explaining basic physics to a flat earther. "Ma'am, testing someone by threatening to end your relationship is emotional manipulation, not communication. It's a form of psychological control that creates insecurity and anxiety in the other person. Everything that happened after Mr. Chen agreed to your stated desire to break up constitutes harassment." Madison's lawyer, a tired-looking public defender named Stephen Walsh, who clearly drew the short straw that morning, attempted damage control. "Your Honor, my client admits she could have communicated more clearly, but this appears to be a misunderstanding between two confused young people who need space to work through their feelings, not a legal intervention." "Mr. Walsh," I interrupted, "I have documentation going back 6 weeks that tells a different story. I'd prepared for this hearing like a doctoral dissertation defense. Binders organized by date and incident type. Screenshots printed on high-quality paper with timestamps highlighted in yellow. Security footage burned to DVDs with scene indexes. Phone records showing patterns of calls and texts. Witness statements from building security, gym staff, and co-workers who'd observed Madison's escalation campaign. Your Honor, this began with Ms. Holt admitting in writing that her breakup text was obviously a test, designed to manipulate my emotional response. When I didn't perform according to her script, she escalated to social media campaigns designed to damage my reputation, fake pregnancy claims, impersonating medical personnel in phone calls, stalking me at my workplace and gym, enlisting third parties to threaten and manipulate me, and finally creating public disturbances on private property. I handed Judge Hendricks a timeline I'd created in Excel, color-coded by incident type, with supporting documentation referenced by exhibit number. Each escalation was mapped chronologically with dates, times, witnesses, and evidence. Madison's face cycled through emotions like a slot machine landing on jackpot. Disbelief that her private manipulations had been documented, anger that her version of events was being contradicted by facts, panic as she realized that legal proceedings operated on evidence rather than feelings. She made fake social media accounts to circumvent being blocked, I continued. She applied for employment at my company specifically to force contact. She's enlisted her friends, family members, and strangers to harass me on her behalf. Yesterday, she had her life coach contact me through LinkedIn claiming the universe wanted us to heal together. Judge Hendricks flipped through the documentation with the speed-reading skills of someone who processed dozens of these cases weekly. Her eyebrows raised slightly at the fake doctor call transcript. Her mouth tightened when she reached the photos of Madison's parking lot poster board display. "Ms. Holt," the judge said finally, "do you understand that what you've been doing is stalking?" Madison's eyes filled with tears, the genuine kind this time, born of consequence rather than performance. "I just wanted him to care enough to fight for our relationship. I thought if he really loved me—" "Love doesn't require proof through manufactured crisis," Judge Hendricks said. Healthy relationships involve direct communication, not emotional games designed to create insecurity. Mr. Chen handled this situation exactly as any reasonable person should. He took your words at face value and respected your stated decision to end the relationship. Stephen Walsh tried one last argument about young love and learning experiences, but Judge Hendricks had clearly heard enough. I'm granting Mr. Chen's request for a restraining order. Ms. Holt, you are prohibited from contacting him directly or indirectly, approaching within 500 feet of his residence or workplace, enlisting others to contact him on your behalf, or posting about him on social media. Violation of this order will result in immediate arrest and jail time. Madison cried through the rest of the hearing, not the pretty, manipulative tears she'd perfected for Instagram, but the ugly, shoulder-shaking sobs of someone whose preferred reality had just collided with legal consequences. But Madison had never been someone who accepted no as a final answer. The creative workarounds began within 48 hours of the restraining order being filed. Letters arrived through mutual friends, sealed envelopes that looked official until you realized they contained handwritten apologies and requests for one final conversation to get closure. I returned them unopened with notes explaining that accepting them made the friends accessories to restraining order violation. Her mother started calling my phone number, leaving voicemails about Madison's mental health and how I was destroying a young woman who just made some mistakes because she loved you too much. I blocked Mrs. Holt's number and documented the calls as third-party harassment. Fake social media accounts appeared daily, Instagram profiles with names like Portland Girl 2024 and Book Lover M and Yoga and Wine, all featuring photos that could have been stock images, but felt suspicious in their careful anonymity. Each account would send friend requests or follow my profiles, then begin liking posts from months or years earlier, the social media equivalent of standing outside someone's window. I reported each account as harassment and blocked them systematically. Instagram's algorithm eventually caught the pattern and started automatically flagging new accounts that exhibited similar behavior. Madison's most ambitious workaround involved employment as a weapon. She applied for a position at my company, specifically for an opening in the marketing department that would have put her 3 floors above my office but in the same building. The application was professionally crafted, highlighting skills she'd never mentioned during our relationship and experience that seemed designed to make her an ideal candidate. HR flagged her application within hours. Restraining orders show up in standard background checks, and most companies have policies about hiring people who represent potential workplace safety issues. When Madison realized her application had been rejected, she threatened to sue for discrimination, claiming my personal vendetta was interfering with her career opportunities. Our legal department's response was a masterpiece of concise brutality. Ms. Holt has a court-ordered restraining order prohibiting contact with our employee. Her application was rejected on the basis of this legal restriction, not personal bias. Further communication regarding this matter will be considered harassment. The final attempt came through Madison's therapist, a woman named Dr. Rebecca Santos, who apparently believed that healing required forcing unwilling participants into emotional reconciliation. The letter arrived on official letterhead, carefully worded to sound clinical rather than manipulative. Dear Mr. Chen, I am writing as Madison Holt's licensed therapist to request your participation in a healing process that would benefit both parties. Madison is struggling to process the end of your relationship and believes that a single supervised conversation would provide necessary closure. This would be conducted in my office with professional mediation to ensure safety and appropriate boundaries. Research shows that unresolved relationship endings can contribute to long-term mental health issues, and I believe this intervention could prevent future psychological complications for both of you. My lawyer's response was shorter and more direct. Ms. Holt can process her feelings without involving Mr. Chen. This request constitutes continued harassment through a third party and violates the existing restraining order. Any further contact will result in additional legal action. Madison lost her support network piece by piece as mutual friends grew tired of being recruited as proxy warriors in someone else's psychological war. First went the college friends who'd initially rallied around her. They stopped responding when Madison couldn't maintain consistent stories about what had actually happened. The sorority sisters faded away when they realized supporting Madison meant choosing sides in drama that never ended. Brittany evicted Madison from her couch after 3 weeks of constant emotional crisis, daily strategizing sessions about getting Kieran back, and the stress of being asked to participate in increasingly complicated schemes to circumvent legal restrictions. Madison's parents started charging her rent when she moved back home, treating her less like a heartbroken daughter seeking comfort and more like an adult whose poor decisions had consequences. She violated the restraining order twice. Once by showing up at my gym despite being explicitly prohibited from my places of employment, recreation, and routine activities. Once by having her cousin Emma deliver what she called a final letter of apology that doesn't require any response. Both violations resulted in immediate arrest, court appearances, and escalating consequences. The first violation earned her 40 hours of community service and court-mandated therapy sessions with a different therapist, one who specialized in boundary issues and manipulation tactics rather than enabling codependent behavior. The second violation cost Madison her part-time retail job when she missed 3 shifts for court dates and jail processing. Her manager at Nordstrom had initially been sympathetic to her relationship problems, but lost patience when those problems began interfering with store operations and customer service. The pattern finally broke. No more tests. No more audience willing to validate manufactured drama. No more reinforcement for emotional manipulation disguised as romantic passion. Madison discovered what happens when consequence meets behavior, when documentation trumps narrative, when institutions side with facts over feelings, over feelings, over feelings, over feelings, over feelings.